#prescribe kindness. Thank you, and stay safe from Boots.
For relief of cold and flu symptoms, ask your pharmacist for Uniflu, a powerful 2-tablet treatment. 1 tablet to tackle your symptoms and 1 tablet packed with vitamin C. Uniflu. Always read the label. Ask your pharmacist.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
And this is Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk with John Duggan until 5 o'clock. 53106 is our text number. If you missed it, you'll be able to check out our sports review segment on the Saturday panel about sports books on our YouTube channel and on offtheball.com on our podcast section later on. Really good recommendations from Owen Sheehan, Arthur O'Dea and Neil Tracy. And we got so many recommendations in on 53106, so we'll get to them after 4 o'clock. But at the moment, we're going to talk about the business of sport and how sport has been affected by the coronavirus pandemic. So we're joined on the line by Kevin Moore, the MD of Legacy Communications and a columnist for the Sunday Independent, and by Ciaran Medles, a tax expert who heads up the BDO Sports Advisory Unit. Lads, good afternoon.
Hi, John.
Hope you're well and keeping safe. Ciaran, I'll start with you. Would it be fair to say the most vulnerable sports people in the pandemic are League of Ireland players? The government's 70% wage guarantee for 12 weeks should help the temporary layoffs at clubs such as Sligo and Cork. But hopefully the FAI, despite their own well-documented financial troubles, have got some access possibly to UEFA money in advance. What's your kind of analysis of the situation there, Ciaran?
Yeah, there's no doubt that the professional football players playing in the Electricity League are under pressure, as are the clubs who operate typically on a week-to-week basis. Cash flow is very low and in the League of Ireland clubs, so typically the turnover across the league is about 15 million. At the moment, we're looking at a season being put off to mid-June at best, and then a truncated season towards losing a whole round of fixtures at the end of the season. So clubs are going to lose significant amount of money. Salaries would account for approximately 66% of all income that comes into the clubs. So obviously the players are going to be affected immediately. But many clubs have already announced that they can't afford to pay wages. But some of the government initiatives will help alleviate that problem, because they will, as you say, provide income support of 350 up to 70% of people's income for at least a 12-week period, hopefully beyond that. But they're very, very instantly affected by the impact of the games being called off.
And Kevin, you work in sports marketing. What's the impact that sponsors are seeing at the moment during this pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to have to adjust pretty quickly. Obviously, sponsors in rugby, GA, all of the high-profile sponsors have suddenly gone quiet. So I suppose it's how quickly we can turn it back on again. Some of the sponsors have adjusted really well in terms of, as we saw an announcement yesterday with SuperValu and Centra, a brilliant initiative with the GA to actually use their platform to help, help round the community together and bring the volunteer force together. So there's ways in which I suppose they can immediately look at continuing to be in the market. But I suppose it's really gearing up for once this goes back live as to how they can get their sponsorship campaigns back going again, because it's really important. The Olympics is one example that, as long as that's postponed and not cancelled, it means sponsors can gear up for the next round of the campaign.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the Olympics, just the logistics around the Olympics, the athletes' village, for example. Like these units all being planned to be sold. What are they going to be doing around effectively staging the Olympics in Japan again in 2021, if that can happen? And I suppose there has to be a little bit of a doubt, Kevin, that actually will happen.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, all of the talk is positive that it'll happen in either spring or later of next year. And I just think it's just massively vital for the sports industry as a whole that events like that do actually happen. So if you think about the Olympics, you've got 11,000 athletes, like you said, in terms of the impact on them, the logistics. I can only imagine the conversations going around at the moment, but actually the importance on the economy and the industry as a whole. The quicker, it's a huge TV generation. There's just so many elements to it. Sponsorship being one as well. But once these events do happen, the Euros is the same next year. It's great to hear that that's not getting cancelled. And I think that there's enough positive messages coming out of the sports industry that these events will happen will mean that everyone can adjust. I suppose the logistics can manage. Ciaran's probably a better place to talk about the athletes, but they can re-evaluate any contracts or anything like that needs to be done, and that the events actually happen rather than being cancelled.
Yeah, Ciaran, you've advised the likes of Robbie Keane in the past. You've represented Irish soccer players with the FAI around big tournaments. Interesting to see FIFA saying that players must stay at their clubs beyond June the 30th with this force majeure clause. How do you see football getting back on some kind of footing when it comes to players, when it comes to the calendar, and when it comes to satisfying broadcasting contracts?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge challenge. We've seen that the Premier League they're very keen, obviously, to make the season happen and conclude, because one of the clauses in the TV deals they have negotiated is there's a penalty clause of 750 million has been mentioned is to be repaid to the UK broadcasters if they don't finish the season. And that has a knock-on effect, obviously, down through the clubs to their income and player wages beyond that. So that is a real challenge, as are some of the commercial deals that are in place. If you look at the elongation of the season, like Liverpool have announced their new Nike deal, which kicks off on the 1st of June, which you could have a situation where the season ends sometime in July, where they've actually wearing different kit than they started the season with, or perhaps the New Balance will insist that they can continue with the kit. So there's lots of unknowns in the middle of all that, how it actually plays out, and obviously the financial terms of that, who gets paid, and penalty clauses within contracts. From a player point of view, most of the actual commercial income, and indeed some of the playing contracts they have at a professional level, would be linked not just to a base retainer, but also to appearances, to win bonuses, to actually to successes in various competitions. So they're all at risk as well if you can't actually achieve those bonuses. So if the league is not finished, for example, for Liverpool, they will lose out an awful lot on some of the win bonuses they would get, the loyalty bonus from their sponsors, as would the players on their own personal commercial contracts.
And Ciaran, as well, with World Rugby having the World Cup, they bank the money from that, the RFU are deferring players' salaries. Is the same thing going to affect Irish rugby players, and will there be some kind of rainy day fund for them, do you think?
Well, I think the RFU has actually been very proactive. So I think players will take deferral of income all the time over actually a reduction or a layoff. So the RFU have obviously lost out significantly on the income from the cancellation of the Italian game, and at Leinster level for European games and some of the high-profile games. So the deferral of income and it's something that the players have accepted, and rightly so, they accept that the income is not coming in, but that's a deferral as opposed to elimination of that income. So I think the RFU obviously have challenges ahead in a professional game if the games don't get back quickly.
And Kevin, how are you seeing the sports landscape post-COVID? I think you're right there about postponements are vital rather than cancellations. But will the football's financial bubble burst a bit? What do you see it, or is it too early even to say what's going to be the sports landscape post this pandemic?
Well, I think the big organisations, Premiership, all of that, I think they'll have, a lot of them are very big and well-run businesses, so they'll have the power to see this. Like any businesses, there's a lot of, I suppose, SMEs struggling throughout this period. So I suppose from an Irish perspective, as long as it doesn't drag on too long, the places like the GAA, they'll adjust. The RFU have had a good few years, so they'll be fine. I suppose the concern is, mentioned earlier, about the lower clubs in soccer, for example, and the FAI coming into this crisis, weren't exactly in brilliant shape. So I suppose now it's great that they've had their new leadership in and that will work, but it just gives them an extra challenge ahead as to how they're going to manoeuvre things, because they're not coming into this crisis on the best footing versus the other two big organisations. So I think the organisations will adapt pretty quickly. They'll adjust the leagues, as Ciaran said. Sponsorship agreements, I don't think will be affected too much. They'll just need to figure out how people can actually use up their assets and that. But I think they'll bounce back pretty strong.
All right, Kevin Moore and Ciaran Medles, thanks so much for joining us today. Talk about the business of sport during the coronavirus pandemic. We'll be back to speak about France 1998 on our World Cup series after the news. 53106 for texts.
Join that conversation. Text us